Ancient structures found under the ice. Is Antarctica hiding the truth about humanity's origins? The endless white stretched in every direction, a world of silence broken only by the hum of the helicopter blades cutting through the polar wind. Below, the Antarctic ice glimmered under a pale sun, an ocean of frozen mystery hiding secrets untouched for millennia. Inside the aircraft, Dr. Emily Carter leaned over a monitor, eyes narrowing as the radar display began to flicker. At first, the signal looked like static interference, faint lines, irregular curves, but then the image stabilized. There it was, a perfect triangle, sharp and deliberate, embedded deep beneath more than 2 miles of ice. Emily froze. "Run it again," she said quietly. The technician beside her adjusted the controls, sending another pulse of radar into the icy void. Moments later, the same image appeared. Three-dimensional, unmistakable, geometric. It wasn't a glitch. It was something real, something that shouldn't exist. The crew exchanged nervous glances. In that cramped cabin, with the wind roaring outside, they all understood what they were seeing, but refused to say it out loud. The youngest member finally whispered, "Pyramids?" The word hung in the air like a spark. Emily didn't answer. She just stared at the screen, her mind racing through every geological explanation she knew. Glacial deformation, volcanic ridges, erosion, but none of them produced structures with perfect 52-degree angles. Those were human proportions. Intentional. Intelligent. For months, this expedition had been planned as a simple mapping mission. The Ellsworth Mountains, one of the least explored regions on Earth, were thought to conceal rare magnetic formations. The goal was to study how ancient tectonic shifts shaped Antarctica before it was locked in ice. But now, the instruments showed something that defied all logic. Reflections like cut stone, patterns too precise to be random. They were staring at the impossible, an artificial formation buried beneath a continent that had supposedly been frozen for over 12 million years. When the team returned to base camp, the atmosphere shifted from curiosity to unease. The scientists gathered in the communication tent, reviewing every scan, every frequency return. The anomalies' dimensions were enormous. A base over 400 meters wide, a height comparable to the Great Pyramid of Giza. And then, the most disturbing detail, the alignment. When they plotted the coordinates, the three largest formations matched the relative positioning of Orion's belt. It wasn't coincidence. Someone had placed them there deliberately. But who and when? 2 days later, Emily uploaded the data to the research server in Washington. Within hours, they received a call from their government liaison, ordering them to cease field transmissions until further notice. The reasoning? Classified data involving geological security zones. None of it made sense. They were scientists, not spies. But they obeyed. The next morning, an unmarked transport plane landed unexpectedly on the ice runway. 2 men stepped out, their jackets bearing no insignia, their eyes hidden behind black lenses. They introduced themselves as consultants from an international geological coordination body. They confiscated the team's drives and asked everyone to sign non-disclosure agreements before they left. Still, rumors spread faster than the cold. One of the engineers had backed up part of the radar data to a private server before handing everything over. Weeks later, the images appeared online, grainy, low resolution, but undeniable. 3 symmetrical shapes beneath the Antarctic ice, aligned in a perfect line stretching several kilometers. The internet exploded. Forums, conspiracy channels, and amateur researchers declared it the discovery of a lifetime, proof of a lost civilization, the real Atlantis, alien pyramids under the ice. The mainstream media dismissed it immediately, labeling it pareidolia, the human mind's tendency to see order where none exists. But not everyone bought the official explanation. A group of independent analysts downloaded the leaked data and ran their own spectral analysis. They found something strange. Faint heat signatures radiating from the same coordinates, subtle but constant, as if something beneath the ice was still generating energy. Geothermal vents, perhaps, or machinery. Then came the whispers that changed everything. Several weather satellites had captured electromagnetic bursts in the same area, synchronized with global magnetic fluctuations. Coincidence? Or a signal? Meanwhile, Emily's team went silent. The official reason? Severe weather forced an early evacuation. But researchers from nearby bases reported something different. They said they heard low-frequency vibrations coming from beneath the ice, rhythmic, mechanical, almost like an engine deep underground. Then, all communications from Emily's base cut off for 4 days. The satellite link showed no power, no heat signatures, nothing, and then just as suddenly, the feed returned. A single automated message was transmitted to headquarters. Mission complete. Returning. Conditions unstable. No voice, no further details. When the transport plane finally landed back on the mainland, the crew looked different. Pale, exhausted, unwilling to speak. The few journalists waiting for them were met with silence. Emily herself refused all interviews, her only statement to the press being, there was nothing there, just ice. The official report, signed and sealed by the U.S. Geological Survey, claimed that the anomalies were natural formations misinterpreted by radar artifacts. But off the record, things didn't add up. 3 members of the expedition resigned within weeks. 1 vanished from public life entirely. Months later, a journalist from an independent outlet published an anonymous testimony, allegedly from one of Emily's assistants. The voice was distorted, the video grainy, but the words were chilling. We were told to stop digging, the man said. Not because it was unsafe, but because of what we saw. There were tunnels, smooth walls, carved stone, and symbols that didn't match any known language. Then they sealed the site. Everything after that was classified. The clip spread online for a few hours before being taken down without explanation. The account that uploaded it was deleted. Around the same time, a satellite technician from Argentina reported that several of their imaging sequences of the same coordinates were suddenly missing from the archives. When questioned, the supervising agency claimed a data corruption issue, but others inside the program hinted that the files were deliberately scrubbed. They said the images showed rectangular openings in the ice, perfectly aligned, as if part of a buried structure had briefly melted through to the surface before freezing again. The deeper people looked, the stranger the coincidences became. Historical records revealed that since the 1950s, multiple expeditions had been abruptly canceled near that same region. One was the 1946 Operation High Jump, a massive U.S. military venture that officially aimed to test equipment in extreme cold, but unofficially, witnesses claimed it was searching for something ancient buried beneath the ice. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, who led the operation, later gave a cryptic statement during an interview. The greatest threat to humanity comes not from any nation, but from the vast regions beyond the poles. No one ever asked him what he meant. For scientists like Emily, the line between discovery and danger had become blurred. The ice was not just a wall of frozen water. It was a vault, a lock over something ancient, something that perhaps predated human civilization itself. Every time her mind replayed the radar image, that perfect triangle glowing beneath layers of blue ice, she felt the same chill crawl down her spine. Logic told her it was a geological illusion, but deep down, she couldn't silence the thought that haunted her every night since. What if we didn't build the first pyramids? What if we merely copied what was already there, waiting, hidden under the frozen skin of the Earth? The Antarctic winds howled again, carrying their eternal secrets across a land untouched by time. Somewhere beneath that silence, under endless miles of ancient ice, something slept. Vast, deliberate, and older than history itself. The discovery beneath the Antarctic ice should have been the end of the mystery. A geological anomaly explained, a misread signal forgotten. But it wasn't. The data refused to fade. Across universities and research labs, a quiet rebellion began to stir. Scientists and historians who dared to question the official report started to connect dots that, when aligned, drew a disturbing picture. One that suggested humanity's history was far older and far stranger than we had ever believed. The first piece of that puzzle appeared not in a laboratory, but in a museum archive in Istanbul. Hidden among the Ottoman maps was a piece of parchment from 1513, the Piri race map. It showed the outline of South America and, impossibly, the northern coast of Antarctica, drawn centuries before the continent was officially discovered. But what unsettled modern cartographers wasn't the accuracy of its coastlines. It was the fact that the Antarctic shore was shown without ice. Whoever mapped it had seen Antarctica as a green land, not a frozen wasteland. That would mean the original source map, The one Peary race claimed to have copied from older charts kept by ancient kings, dated back to a time when Antarctica was ice-free. That shouldn't be possible. According to mainstream science, the last time Antarctica's coast was exposed was more than 12,000 years ago, long before any known civilization could have created detailed maps. Yet the coordinates matched perfectly. Someone, somehow, had charted the world before the dawn of recorded history. Researchers began to re-examine other anomalies that had long been dismissed. In the 1960s, Russian scientists drilling ice cores from Vostok Station found layers of volcanic ash and pollen, evidence that Antarctica had once been warm, covered in forests and rivers. Fossilized ferns and the remains of tropical trees supported the same conclusion. Life had thrived there once. But who had lived there? Some believed the answer lay in ancient myths, stories once thought to be symbolic, now beginning to sound like faint echoes of truth. Legends from Egypt spoke of a lost island civilization destroyed by cataclysmic floods. Greek philosophers called it Atlantis. The Mayans told of a world drowned beneath rising seas. The Hindu text described a vanished continent in the south named Atala, a place of great knowledge and divine beings. And across the world, from the Andes to the Himalayas, ancient carvings depicted beings descending from the sky, teaching early humans the secrets of architecture, astronomy, and agriculture. The deeper the investigation went, the more unsettling the similarities became. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built with near-perfect alignment to true north, mirrored the same angle found in the Antarctic formations. Both appeared to encode celestial knowledge, star positions, solar alignments, cycles of precession. Civilizations separated by oceans and millennia, yet speaking the same cosmic language. Coincidence or inheritance? One theory began to rise above the rest, whispered first in obscure academic circles, then spreading through documentaries and underground conferences. It suggested that a civilization, older than Egypt, Sumer, or even Atlantis, once thrived in what is now Antarctica. They possessed a deep understanding of the Earth, stars, and perhaps technologies beyond our comprehension. But around 12,000 years ago, a global catastrophe struck. The Earth's poles shifted, climate patterns collapsed, and the continent was swallowed by ice. Whatever they built, whatever they were, was frozen in place, preserved like insects in amber. The ice became their tomb. Evidence supporting this theory continued to emerge. Satellite imaging in the 2000s revealed subglacial mountain ranges, the Gamburtsev Mountains, hidden beneath the eastern ice sheet. The mountains' peaks were sharp, uneroded, almost too young geologically to match their supposed age. And beneath them, radar found vast cavities, some large enough to fit entire cities. Officially, these were explained as subglacial lakes and melt cavities. But those who had seen the raw data described something different: rectangular formations, tunnels, patterns suggesting design rather than chaos. Meanwhile, strange magnetic anomalies beneath Antarctica baffled even military analysts. Some regions produced magnetic fields so strong and localized that compasses spun wildly, aircraft instruments malfunctioned, and satellite readings went dark. The anomalies were concentrated in the same areas where the radar formations had been found. By now, the question had shifted from if something existed under the ice to who or what built it. Among the many voices drawn into the mystery was Dr. Miguel Alvarez, a historian specializing in pre-Diluvian civilizations. In a rare interview, he spoke with quiet conviction. "We think civilization started in Mesopotamia 5,000 years ago. But what if that was just the reboot? What if humanity had already reached incredible heights before the last great ice age, and Antarctica was their capital?" His theory was dismissed by most of his peers, yet his research was compelling. He found references in Sumerian tablets to a southern land of eternal light, where the gods kept their knowledge hidden after the floods. Egyptian priests, when asked about the origins of their wisdom, pointed to the far south, where the sun once rose differently. Even more chilling was a discovery made by a group of European researchers analyzing mineral samples retrieved from deep ice drills near the same coordinates where Emily Carter's team had worked. Embedded in the crystalline matrix was a metallic fragment, pure alloy, unknown composition, with microscopic grooves etched into its surface. When magnified, those grooves formed patterns that resembled hieroglyphs. The find was quietly confiscated by the research funders and never seen again. While the scientific establishment worked to suppress discussion, fragments of truth kept leaking through. Pilots flying over restricted Antarctic zones reported unusual optical effects, glowing lights beneath the ice, too bright to be geothermal activity. Some said they saw massive dark shapes moving slowly under the translucent layers, like shadows from another world. Others claimed to have witnessed an opening, a circular depression that seemed to emit faint mist and a dull metallic hum. The official explanations remained the same: optical illusions, sensor errors, ice reflections. Yet the accounts were too consistent, too many to ignore. For a few daring researchers, Antarctica became not just a frozen continent, but the possible cradle of humanity's forgotten epoch. They proposed that when the climate shifted and the poles changed, survivors of that civilization fled north, spreading their knowledge across the globe, to Egypt, to Sumer, to the Andes. They built pyramids, temples, and megaliths in memory of the world they had lost, encoding the secrets of their origins in stone so that one day, when the ice melted, their true home would be found again. If that were true, it would mean everything we know about human history is incomplete. That civilization didn't begin from nothing, but from the ashes of something far greater. In hidden corners of academia, this idea took root. The concept of a mother civilization beneath the Antarctic ice became a symbol, not of conspiracy, but of the limits of human understanding. The more we uncovered about our planet's past, the more questions arose. Why do so many ancient cultures describe gods descending from the sky? Why did early humans around the world suddenly develop advanced architecture, mathematics, and astronomy, as if taught by a single source? And why does modern science treat Antarctica as if it were sacred ground, sealed off and heavily restricted, as though it were protecting not the environment, but a secret? As the years passed, the story of the pyramids under the ice faded from headlines, buried beneath skepticism and silence. Yet the radar images, the ancient maps, the myths, they all pointed to something undeniable. There had been a time when Antarctica was not a wasteland, but a thriving world, alive with knowledge now lost. And maybe, just maybe, that world had never truly died. It merely waited, buried beneath the ice, watching as we slowly began to remember. The howling wind scraped across the ice like a warning from another age. The ground shuddered beneath their boots as fissures snaked outward, splitting the frozen surface and revealing dark stone beneath. Impossibly smooth, impossibly ancient. When Emily and her team descended into the exposed crevice, the temperature seemed to drop even further. Though it wasn't just the cold that made their hands tremble. It was the feeling that they were stepping into a place they were never meant to find. Their lights pierced the darkness. And there it was. The tunnel walls were carved, not by glaciers, but by deliberate hands. Perfectly straight passages stretched into blackness, their surfaces covered in strange inscriptions, symbols that didn't belong to any known language. They shimmered faintly when touched by light, like the residue of something once alive. "Are we sure this isn't some kind of mineral reaction?" one of the researchers asked. Emily didn't answer. Her voice recorder was already running. "This is entry log 031. We've discovered what appears to be an artificial chamber, 40 meters below the ice shelf. The walls are warm." She placed her gloved hand on the surface. It pulsed. Not metaphorically, it moved ever so slightly, like a slow heartbeat. The team exchanged uneasy glances. No one spoke for several minutes. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. The tunnel opened into a vast dome, large enough to fit a cathedral. The ceiling arched high above, covered in crystalline frost that reflected their lights into 1,000 fragments. At the center of the chamber stood a monolithic structure, a black obelisk half buried in ice. Its surface was marked with more of those alien symbols, but these glowed with a faint blue hue, pulsing in perfect rhythm. Emily felt her chest tighten. This wasn't a ruin. It was still active. She slowly approached, holding her instrument scanner forward. The readings made no sense. Radiation spikes, electromagnetic surges, frequencies pulsing at intervals identical to Earth's own magnetic resonance. It was as if the structure was tuned to the planet itself. "This can't be natural," whispered one of the team members. Emily nodded. "It's reacting to us." When she touched the surface of the obelisk, the blue glow flared, and suddenly, the chamber was filled with sound. A deep harmonic vibration reverberated through the ice, through their bones, through the very air. The ice began to tremble, and for a split second, the entire structure shifted. Then, silence. Later, when reviewing the audio recordings, they discovered something extraordinary. Hidden within the frequencies of that vibration were patterns, mathematical sequences repeating over and over. Prime numbers, geometric constants, and coordinates that pointed not to another place on Earth, but to the stars. The realization hit Emily like a wave. Whoever built this knew the sky as well as they knew the ground. The team worked for days to decode the symbols. The deeper they translated, the more impossible it seemed. The inscriptions described a cataclysm, a time when the waters fell from the sky and the air turned to ice. It spoke of an exodus of beings who walked with the first humans before retreating beneath the veil of cold. Was this a myth? A warning? Or a record of something that truly happened long before human history began? Meanwhile, strange malfunctions began to plague the camp above. Equipment froze despite functioning heaters. Satellite links flickered and died. At night, several crew members reported hearing low tones echoing through the valley, the same frequency as the sound from the obelisk. One technician claimed he saw lights under the ice, moving slowly, like something alive beneath their feet. Emily tried to keep her team focused, but she couldn't ignore the unease creeping into every corner of their minds. One night, while she was reviewing data, the monitor flickered, and for a split second, she saw something impossible, a map, projected from nowhere, a rotating globe of the Earth, but it wasn't covered in ice. The continents looked different, coastlines extended, islands where there should be none. Antarctica was green, mountainous, and alive, and then it was gone. By the fourth week, several researchers demanded to leave. "We're not prepared for this," one of them argued. "We came here to study ice, not whatever this is." But Emily couldn't stop. She had to know what it meant, what this civilization was trying to tell them. In a desperate final push, she led a small team back into the main chamber. There, on the far side of the dome, they discovered another tunnel, narrower, winding downward. It led to a second chamber, smaller, filled with stone tablets sealed in transparent crystal. The carvings on these tablets were even more complex. Intricate spirals, interlocking circles, and depictions of humanoid figures standing beside enormous machines. In one image, a figure raised a sphere above its head, surrounded by lines that looked like magnetic fields. Another showed 3 pyramids, aligned beneath a cluster of stars identical to Orion's belt. The last tablet depicted something that made Emily's heart race, a great deluge, waves swallowing mountains, followed by a map of the Earth under ice. A single line of symbols glowed beneath it. She translated them aloud, barely whispering the words. Open quote, "When the world freezes again, the truth shall rise beneath the ice." Close quote. That night, Emily locked herself in the communications room and attempted to transmit the data to the base in McMurdo. But every time she sent the file, the transmission failed. The system reported interference, unknown source. Then, the lights flickered and the power died. In the faint glow of emergency lamps, she saw her breath in the air. But it wasn't cold anymore. The floor beneath her vibrated softly, rhythmically, as though something enormous was waking far below. Outside, a deep rumble shook the valley. Ice cracked open in the distance, and the same low frequency filled the air, the sound of the obelisk, but louder this time. Emily grabbed her camera and ran outside. What she saw made her stop breathing. The snow-covered ridge near the excavation site was moving, collapsing inward. Beneath it, faint blue light spilled out through fractures in the ice, outlining the shape of an enormous structure hidden below the glacier. Not a single pyramid, but an entire complex. The radar had only revealed a fraction. This wasn't one monument. It was a city. And it was awakening. The storm came without warning. Sheets of snow tore through the Antarctic night as the sky pulsed with a strange electric glow, like lightning trapped behind clouds. Emily stood at the edge of the excavation site, her parka whipping in the wind, staring down at the impossible sight before her. An entire network of geometric structures glowing beneath the ice, forming patterns too precise to be natural. The earth beneath her feet rumbled again, deeper this time, almost like a heartbeat rising from the planet itself. The ice cracked and split open, revealing colossal spires of black stone rising in perfect synchrony. Each one pulsed with the same bluish light they had seen inside the chamber. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic, almost musical. "Record everything!" Emily shouted over the roar of the wind. Her voice barely carried. The team scrambled to set up cameras, but the electromagnetic interference was so strong that every device flickered and died within seconds. The only thing still working was Emily's handheld recorder. Analog, old, mechanical. "Log number 62, she said, her voice trembling. "The structures are responding to something. To us? To the environment? I don't know, but the readings suggest an energy source deep beneath the crust. This isn't a ruin. It's a machine, and it's still active." Then, the lights began to move. Lines of luminescent energy ran between the buried pyramids, connecting them in a vast lattice. From above, it might have looked like a gigantic circuit board etched into the ice, a design stretching for miles, precise down to the meter. Inside the control tent, their computers flickered to life on their own. Code streamed across the screens. Not human code, but patterns of numbers and symbols repeating in cycles of 12. Emily leaned closer. "Look at that sequence. It's the same as the signal we decoded from the obelisk." She realized with growing horror what it meant. The structures weren't just reacting, they were communicating. Far below, under miles of frozen ground, the sound returned. A resonant hum that shook the instruments and set the compass needles spinning wildly. Snow and dust lifted from the surface, hovering weightlessly before falling again. It was as though gravity itself had faltered for an instant. Suddenly, every light in the valley blinked out. Darkness swallowed the world. Only the glow from the fissures in the ice remained, outlining the vast geometric city sleeping beneath. Emily's voice, recorded later, would be the last coherent transmission from the expedition. Open quote, "It feels like the ice is breathing, like it's alive. And whatever's down there, it's waking up." Close quote. Hours passed. The storm raged endlessly. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, it stopped. The wind fell silent, the sky cleared, and the stars above burned brighter than anyone on Earth had ever seen. Not in their usual positions. They shimmered in patterns that matched the carvings from the chamber walls. The same constellations the ancient builders had mapped tens of thousands of years ago. Emily stared upward, realization dawning. They weren't worshiping the stars, she whispered. They were signaling them. Days later, rescue teams were sent from McMurdo Station. But when they arrived, the camp was deserted. Tents torn open, equipment frozen solid, generators dead. The snow was disturbed by strange geometric impressions, circles and lines etched perfectly into the ground. No footprints, no bodies, only Emily's recorder, half buried in the ice. When the investigators played it back, there was only static at first. Then, faintly beneath the distortion, her final words, open quote, "It's not a city of the dead, it's a vault, a memory, and it's remembering itself," close quote. After that, silence. Weeks turned into months. Governments denied all reports. The U.S. Geological Survey released a statement calling the entire expedition a logistical failure due to severe weather conditions. But leaked photos began circulating online, images showing satellite captures of the region glowing faintly at night, with geometric shapes faintly visible beneath the surface. Independent researchers attempted to triangulate the location. Many claimed they couldn't. The coordinates no longer matched any known topographical data. It was as if the land itself had shifted. Then something stranger happened. Seismic stations across the southern hemisphere began detecting rhythmic pulses, tiny vibrations repeating every 12 hours, identical in pattern to the signals Emily's team had recorded. They came from deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Scientists called it background resonance. But those who had seen the leaked recordings gave it another name: the pulse of the ancients. In the months that followed, other anomalies began to appear around the world. Compasses in South America started drifting erratically. Satellites passing over the South Pole malfunctioned. In Peru, archaeologists reported electromagnetic fluctuations near the Nazca lines, fluctuations synchronized with the Antarctic pulses. Even the stars above the southern sky seemed to shift slightly, aligning for a few moments into the same triangular pattern seen in the chamber's carvings. The connections were undeniable. Something beneath Antarctica had reawakened, and it was influencing the planet itself. In a secured archive in Geneva, a small group of scientists reviewed the last recovered data logs from Emily's mission. One file, damaged but partially restorable, showed a 3D rendering of the underground structures. The image zoomed out automatically, revealing that the pyramids and tunnels were only a fraction of a much larger formation. The complete layout formed a massive circle, and at its center, a void. An empty space nearly 10 kilometers wide, shaped like a sphere. A missing piece. Dr. Vega, the lead analyst, looked up from the screen. "It's like a core," he said. "Whatever powered this city is gone." "But what if it isn't gone?" Another voice asked quietly. "What if it's somewhere else now?" Years later, strange low-frequency sounds were detected in the Pacific, matching the Antarctic pulse, but now spreading outward, resonating through the Earth's oceans. Deep-sea probes recorded faint, luminescent trails moving along the ocean floor, converging toward the southern pole. The phenomenon grew stronger each year. Satellite images showed new fissures forming across Antarctica's glaciers, radiating outward from the same point where Emily's team vanished. On one of the final transmissions from an orbital probe, before it mysteriously went offline, a message appeared, data corrupted but readable in part. It contained a single phrase, encoded in the same ancient pattern as the obelisk's language. When translated, it read, open quote, "The sleepers awaken when the ice forgets." And so, beneath the endless Antarctic expanse, beneath miles of frozen silence, something continues to move. Something vast, something remembering what it once was. The ice conceals it still, a civilization older than humanity, patient as time itself, waiting for the right moment when the world grows warm again. And perhaps, when that day comes, when the last glacier melts and the sea reclaims the land, we will finally see what lies beneath. Not the ruins of a forgotten past, but the architects of our beginning.